So we're going to get started. I'd like to call to order the special meeting of the Board of Directors, Monterey Peninsula Water Management District on Friday, July 31st, 2020 at 3:02. Roll call vote. Roll call, please. Arlene?
Yep, she's showing a little bit of slow connection.
Director. I got unmute her.
Aye. Are we doing a?
Director Byrne.
I'm present.
Director Edwards.
Present.
Present?
Edwards.
Present?
Director Evans.
Present.
Director. Director Potter.
Here.
Thank you. And Director Riley.
Here.
Thank you. Present.
Thank you. Let's stand for the pledge of the allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which we stand, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Item 3, additions and corrections to the agenda.
There are no additions, but I think I know where you're headed. If you wanted to invert items 1 and 2, that would facilitate the process.
Yes. With the board permission, I'd like to. With the board permission, I'd like to switch those 2 items if we can.
Edwards, I'm in favor of that.
Okay, do we need a motion and roll call vote or whatever on that? Mr.
Yes, you do.
Then I
Yes,
will
you do.
make-
Roll call vote on a motion.
So Director Evans will make the motion to swap the order and take number 2 first and then go to number 1.
Director
Byrne, second.
Okay, Director Burns, we got a motion by Director Evans and a second by Vice Chair Burns. Roll call vote.
Director Riley.
Mr. Chairman, you need public comment on this.
Oh, excuse me. Thank you. Arlene, do we have any public comment on this item?
If anyone has a public comment, please use the raise hand icon 9 on your phone. I see a comment from Mr. Gary Curcio. I'm going to put the timer up just a moment. Mr. Curcio, thank you for waiting, and please present your comment.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Gary Curcio. I'm representing the Monterey County Hospitality Association. In reviewing the candidates that submitted proposals, we have a concern about one in particular that I would like to state to you.
Oh, okay, Mr. Curcio, I'm going to cut you off right there. We're not in the item yet. We're just talking about switching those items. That will be first, and we'll be taking public.
Okay, so you have not switched them yet. I'm sorry.
Right. Is that okay with you?
Of course, thank you.
All right, thank you, Arlene. I mean, thank you, Mr. Kersey. Any more?
I see no raised hands.
All right, thank you. Back to the board. We have a motion and we have a second, and we're doing a roll call vote on switching these agenda items. Arlene, roll call.
Director Wright,
Was that?
Director Riley,
Yes.
thank you. Director. Director Hoff,
Yes.
Director Adams,
Aye.
Director Byrne,
Yes.
Director Evans,
Aye.
and Director Edwards.
Aye.
Unanimous approval.
All right, thank you. Now we're going to do oral communication. Anyone wish to address the board on closed session items or matters not listed on the agenda may do so only during oral communication. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. The public may comment on all other items at the time they are presented to the board. Oral communication is
Chair Edwards, can I make a request that to have everybody mute their mics if they're not speaking actively? There's a lot of background noise happening.
I hear it too. Well, everybody mute their mics. I'm scared to touch mine. Okay, all communications open, Arlene.
Chair Edwards, I see one hand, Gary Curcio. I will check and see if he does still want to comment on this item.
All right.
Curcio, is your hand speak under oral communication?
No, I'm sorry. I'm still waiting to speak under item 2.
I will mute your. I see no raised hands.
Okay. Oral communications is now closed. General Manager, what is the first item on the agenda, which is item 2?
Item 2 is consider selection of public outreach consultant. I will have Stephanie Locke introduce this. Just by way of background, the Public Outreach Committee did meet over a month ago to approve a distribution of an RFQ, request for qualifications. 8 candidates were sent the information. 3 responded. You have the results of those 3 in your board packet. At that time that the RFQ was authorized, all potential conflicts were identified, and it was determined to go ahead and send the RFQ to all viable candidates, and then obviously leave discussion to the committee. The outreach committee decided that there were some interesting results of this submittal and that they would like the entire board to review it, which is why it was added to the special meeting today. And with that, Stephanie Locke, if you'd like to introduce it to the board.
Sure, I'll just give a really brief summary. For the past 7 years, the district was contracting with a pretty much one-person public relations marketing firm to manage our branding and message development. And the consultant had been responsible for doing things such as preparing and printing out newsletters, press releases, handouts, and managing and coordinating events and workshops, and as well as coordinating with the media in collaboration with both staff and the Public Outreach Committee. Other responsibilities included managing the district's social media and websites, email, and mailing lists. The previous consultant worked on a monthly retainer with expenses related to project design, printing, advertising, mailing, and other things billed separately. The recommendation today is that the board determine which consultant should be retained by the district for the remainder of this fiscal year. Alternatively, the board may postpone a decision and refer the proposals perhaps to an ad hoc committee for further investigation, or reopen the request for proposals or take no action at this time. We have 3 applicants, and as you know in your board packet, I provided you with their websites as well as their responses to the request for qualifications. The applicants are panelists for the WebEx today and are prepared to give a short presentation of no more than 5 minutes to expand upon their submittals. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. All right. Who's the first one up there, General Manager?
Well, I don't know. Did we agree to go
Adam, flip the
alphabetical
coin.
by first name?
Okay.
Stephanie, you're muted, but
I did not give them any order, so I have to
Okay.
say, you know, I
Who wanna
just
be
listed
first?
them in the board packet.
yeah,
As-
let's go in the same order as the board packet. So that would be Mr. Feinberg would be first, followed by TMD Creative, followed by Wellman Ad.
Okay. Before we get started, any questions from the board members? What's going on, or they have any questions?
This is Director Hoffman. I do.
Yes, go ahead, Director Hoffman.
Can you hear me? Am I loud enough? There's been
You
complexity
loud enough
past.
today. I can
Okay.
hear you.
Yeah, you're good.
There you go. Okay. So this seems to be a bit unusual to me, the process that you're going through. In the past, when we've had consultant contracts come up before the board for approval, consideration, the consultants have not made presentations. So this seems odd to me in that context.
Yes, very much so. The reason being, normally you would have a recommendation from a committee and act on that recommendation. Because there was no recommendation from the committee, you as an entire board are de facto the committee, and there is no current recommendation at hand. So in order to best inform the board fully, this opportunity was presented.
So, Chair, in follow-up, because the way the agenda item is worded is that, one, either we make a decision on somebody tonight, 2, we defer it to an ad hoc, or 3, we reopen it. So it seems to me that before we have presentations by the consultants that submitted proposals, that a decision needs to be made whether or not the other 2 options should be considered first. And if so, if one of the other options are voted on and agreed upon, then presentations on the existing proposals becomes moot and unnecessary for this board meeting.
Okay. For process and reading, we got these 3 applicants in, and we should look at these 3 applicants after their presentation. If you feel none of the 3 fit what you're looking for, and the majority of the board feel that they does not fit the position or what we're looking for, we can use those other considerations that you just brought up. So
I'd like, excuse me, Chair, if I'd like the council to weigh in on process in this respect.
okay, and with me.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is
if I-
Dave Potter. I'd agree with Gary. I think that we should decide if we want to refer this to an ad hoc and not waste the public's time if we should end up there accidentally. So I'd support that thought. And if Gary wanted to make a motion to that effect that we continue it or direct this to an ad hoc committee, I'd support that motion for discussion.
This is Vice Chair Byrne. I think that we should at least hear what the proposals are.
Okay,
I agree with you.
okay, one second. Mr. Laredo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is no requirement of law that requires you to do this one way or the other. You could hear proposals first. You could instead take the direction of Mr. Hoffman. I do suggest before you actually take any vote on this, that you should listen to your public under public comment.
Okay, thank you. Well, we have a motion on the floor by Director Hoffman, and we have a second by Director Potter. Let's take it out to the public and find out what the public comment on this is.
Chair Edwards, can you clarify what the motion is?
The motion is that we should decide if we want to take it out, send it back out for RFP, or look at it by a committee, ad hoc committee. That's what we decided.
That's not what I was seconding. I was seconding the deferral of this to an ad hoc committee, not sending it out for a new RFP process.
Well, those are the two options.
Well, I'm bifurcating them, or my second was with the intent of bifurcating the two and simply vote on the ad hoc commission, but we probably ought to ask the maker of the motion what his intent was.
Well, as the maker of as a proposed motion, I will support, if Mr. Potter will say that's his motion, I will second his motion for an ad hoc committee.
All right, I'll take the lead and say it's my motion.
And I will second that motion.
Under discussion.
Okay, under discussion. Go ahead, Mr. Rowley. Rowley.
I think there's nothing wrong with the motion. I think the timing of it is more my interest. It seems to me the process that was established in the beginning worked. 8 were solicited, 3 responded, nothing wrong with that. The 3 that responded have been scheduled to appear here. I think we ought to go through that process, listen to the the potential, consultants, and hear what they have to say first, then consider if this motion is appropriate or not. I mean, I'm not saying what's appropriate, it's whether it's relevant or not, or whether that's what we want to consider. But I think we're doing a disservice to the very process that we initiated and those that have responded. And I think we should hear from them first before we vote on this motion.
Chair Edwards, point of order. At this point, we're at public comment, not for board member comments. So if we could adhere to Robert's rules, it'd be very much appreciated.
All right there, Director Hoffman. We're going to take it out there to the public and hear what the public has to say on the motion. Arlene, open it up to the public.
All right. Okay, see 3 hands raised. Mr. Curcio, please present your comment. Mr.
Yes,
Curcio.
can you hear me? Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just want to make sure I'm commenting on the right thing. Is it fine that I make comments on the applicants, on one of the applicants?
Not at this time.
Not at this time.
Right.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm confused as to what we're supposed to be commenting on. So I'll withdraw my hand.
Okay, thank you.
Chair Edwards, I think it's appropriate based on the comment by the proposed commenter that clarification should be made to the public as to what the discussion item is at this time.
Okay, we're going to get there. We're going to get there. Any other hands are out there?
Yes. I see a person identified as JT. Comment.
Hi, this is John Tilley. Thank you very much for this chance to comment. I'm not sure. I would like, first of all, to say that I support the motion to have this go back to an ad hoc committee. I think that this was a process that needs to be looked at much more carefully. We're in a very sensitive time with the district, and I think that having this done right is very important. I'm not sure how one particular ad agency would pass the smell test of efficacy. Mr. Wellman, I'm not commenting on his capabilities. What I'm commenting on is his close relationship with Public Water Now, with candidates who are now on the board and trying to get onto the board as candidates in the general election this November 3rd.
John, please pause right there. I believe that's exactly Mr. Curcio's line of questioning. We have to do this in baby steps. The public comment right now is on the idea to pass this back to an ad hoc committee. If that fails and we begin to discuss individual candidates, then you will all have an opportunity to discuss that topic.
I would like to thank Arlene for pausing the clock. It shows, oh, no, it wasn't, but Dave, I get your point there. I just don't want to have the public to be told they are not allowed to comment on this agenda item the way it was presented. That to me seems very peculiar, that we're being told you're not allowed to comment on the particular candidates. And I just want to make sure that we at some point do have that capability to make those comments. So if you would use that as a placeholder, this was presented to us in a public in a public agenda. I feel we should be allowed to comment on it as we would like to. Thank you very much.
Chair Byrne.
Yes.
I publicly noticed about these three candidates. I think they have the opportunity, should have the opportunity to address them.
Oh, okay, Vice
It's,
Chair. Vice Chair, I just want to get the public through it and then it going back to the board.
Yeah, I think to Director Burns' comment, I think she's reinforcing that she would like the public heard on the particular topic about their perception of who the candidates are. But I believe what you signaled is that's not what is being discussed here at hand. Right now, it's being discussed. There's a motion and a second to kind of remand this back to an ad hoc committee. Mr. Laredo, I don't know if you can sort through the difference between the two here for us.
Well, typically we only have one round of public comment on a matter, in which case it would both be process and substance. My understanding is the chair, he's bifurcated the matter. He wants to handle the process question first, and he wants to take comment on the process, and then if the process continues, we'll take a second round of public comment on the substance. There's nothing wrong with either approach. The chair's approach is a bit unusual. Typically, we only have one round of public comment.
I'd like to be heard, please, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Director Adams.
Thank you. I'd like to make a substitute motion, and the substitute motion is that we continue with the process that was started at the Public Outreach Committee, where we did not reach agreement on what we were going to do. We decided that we would bring this item to the full board. So my motion is that we continue to bring this item forward to the full board for hearing today.
Mr. Chair, in the interest of adding to more confusion, I'm going to withdraw my motion. Let's get on with it.
Well,
Mary's motion is unnecessary.
okay. The motion has been withdrawn. Thank you, Director Potter. Now we're going to go to the applicants and hear the applicants for 5 minutes each, and then we'll bring it back and have public comment, and then we'll bring it back to the board. Okay.
To begin with Mr. Feinberg, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
I believe you should be able to hear me now. I think I'm having some bandwidth issues, so I actually have my camera off to hope that helps. I'm not sure if it's on my end or somebody else's end, but I'm seeing my first slide. I assume you are too, and you can hear me. If someone would, Mary, I see your head nodding. So
yeah, yes, we can hear you,
information.
Great.
Very much. Thank you for the opportunity to be in front of you today. I'll try to keep this short and sweet. Start with, for those who don't know me, I've had a few years of experience in marketing media, all of which has involved public and community relations of some kind. And I've also been involved in a lot of governance organizations with boards and advocacy. I've pretty much been full-time in Monterey County the past 12 years, but have been in the area living southeast of Gilroy for the past 30 years. Next slide, please, Arlene. When I started in Monterey County, I originally came as general manager and publisher of the Californian and El Sol and all our related media properties. That was in 2008. And 4 years later, I joined Karen Ardazza and we formed Moxie Marketing, full service agency, primarily serving agriculture clients, many of which are in Monterey County. That was actually a good time. You can move on to the next slide. Just a sampling of some of the government, quasi-government, and nonprofit agency clients I've worked on in Monterey County. I didn't include private sector, but just to give you a feel that I have been around some and been involved here. In 2017, I semi-retired from Moxie and went out on my own trying to work more like 30 to 35 hours a week instead of 60 hours a week. Some weeks I'm successful with that, others I'm not, but I am still working, and I am still working with Moxie as well as some other clients. Next slide, please, Arlene. And you know, in addition to the clients, I've been involved in the county. I was on the Central Coast YMCA board and the Salinas Rotary Board, and past chair of the Salinas Valley Chamber of Commerce, and am currently on the board of the American Cetacean Society. And now the final slide, please. You've got 3 proposals in front of you, a couple of other options. WTF means different things to different people. To me, it means why Terry Feinberg. And I've got a few reasons here for you. And it has to do with approach. First, I will partner with you and be an integral part of your team. I know communications. I've got a lot of good experience and good insight. I am not the subject matter expert, and it's really got a partnership to be most effective. I'm very strategic in my thinking and approach, but in this case, especially in light of Measure J, I don't think it's appropriate for MPWMD to do a full comprehensive marketing plan because there's so many uncertainties and variables. Yet at the same time, everything you put out there should be done with a strategic viewpoint. You know, what do you want people to think, know, or do? And you can have a strategic viewpoint without spending a lot of effort on a strategic plan that might be out of date very quickly. Messaging, copywriting is definitely one of my strengths. I do a lot of it, a lot in the public relations area. And as the chief consultant and copywriter, you know, I'd be integrally involved, and it'd be easier to capture and convey not just the content of the messages, but also to consistently present the appropriate tone and voice. Flexibility, you know, Measure J creates a lot of uncertainties, but so does COVID-19 and everything else we're faced with right now. The RFQ had a number of items listed as potential tactics and roles, but I think it's important that everybody go into this understanding that needs may change. And I'm not only fine with that, I think it's essential and embrace it. Say first, I guess I should say here, I have no perceived or actual conflicts, not working for anybody else in a political event in the area. But it was mentioned in the staff report that my outside costs were not clarified, and that's because I was under the impression that those were handled differently. So let me just say that I'm fully transparent in who I work with. I've got a good team of people around the country, from designers to developers. I'm happy to pass along my costs if you want to deal with them directly, or to run them through my company at a minimum markup on that. But as an example, the designers I'm working with, and I've got 4 I work with on an ongoing basis, range from $30 to $75 an hour. But I play well in the same colors, and if you've got people you've been happy with, you know, my role will be strategy and messaging and copy, and I'm happy to work with any situation. It was observed in the staff report that my style seems casual. I will tell you, my work is very serious, and my style is casual. It's conversational, it's friendly. I found this builds better working relationships, and rapport is more effective, especially dealing with constituents and the community. And for me, it's more enjoyable for everybody involved. And then finally, on cost.
Is that 5 minutes, Arlene?
Your 5 minutes has expired, sir.
That was faster than I thought, so I will leave it there and leave it for questions.
All right, thank you. Board, do you have any question for Mr. Feinberg?
We should take questions at the very end of all of the presentations.
Okay, sounds good to me. All right, Arlene, who's the next one up?
Let's see. It would be Mr. Spadoni and Ms. Zendis from TMD Creative, and I'll have their presentation up in just a moment.
Thank you.
And I will set the timer for 5 minutes. And let me unmute.
All right.
Unfortunately, you won't be able to see the timer, but I do have a timer set.
Thank you. Go ahead,
can
sir.
everyone hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, Mr. Spadoni.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. I'm here to represent TMD Creative. I'm the director of the managing director of TMD. I've been here for 6 years, and TMD has been serving clients in the Monterey Peninsula for a little over 20 years. We're in our 20th year this year. You go to the next slide, Arlene. And what we think we offer, we're, an established industry leader. We're the largest agency in Monterey County. Most of the entire team here, we have 16 full-time employees. Almost all of them were born and raised here locally. We're project management experts, and we also deliver quantifiable results. One of the things that I heard mentioned in the committee meeting the other day was that maybe we were a little bit overkill for what you needed right now. I'll go into some details of why I think that's, not the case as we go through. If you go to the next slide, Arlene. So, as I mentioned, we have 16 full-time employees here. We have several project managers. We have a very diverse team of graphic designers. We also have web developers and designers in-house, and then also photography and videography in-house as well. We are really heavily focused on strategy and building benchmarks and setting goals. And we have a lot of experience working with governmental and quasi-governmental agencies. And we have a lot of experience also marketing directly to the varied stakeholders and different audience groups within Monterey County. As we all know, it's very diverse, geographically, demographically, and industrially, industry-wide. Next slide, Arlene. Here's just a partial list of some of our current clients. I did mention we worked with a lot of government agencies, quasi-governmental agencies. We also work with nonprofit foundations. We also work with ag companies as well. So on the left-hand side, you'll see nonprofit foundations and governmental organizations that we work with. On the right side, you'll see businesses. And we, while we do work with organizations out of the area, we kept it kind of local here. And the vast majority of our clients are based here locally. Next slide, Arlene. So what is our process if we were to start working with MPWMD? We listen and learn. We really want to understand who your audience is, what you stand for, you know, how you want to get there. And obviously the most important question is why. We really want to collaborate with you. That's our big thing is collaboration. We really want a partnership with you. We want to understand your organization inside and out, but we can still provide an outside perspective. You know, we'll have the knowledge that we can accurately get your message out into the field. And then the effect of that is, you know, getting MPWMD's message out there to the general public. And not only that, if you go into the next slide, Arlene. We have our kind of 6 steps to brand position. And this is what we would do should we get the contract. We do a brand overview with you. While you don't, you know, necessarily have quote unquote, or maybe you do call them competitors, but for organizations or group with competing and divergent missions, we really want to understand, you know, what they're saying about the district, determine the value proposition, develop that brand value proposition, and then test it out, and then have an ongoing kind of maintenance plan. You'll notice if you look at our proposal that we really kind of front-loaded what we do. So we'd really be spending those first 2 months kind of understanding and developing that message so that we could, after that, start doing our design work, create some templates and things so that it would really be more of a maintenance role and, you know, maybe meeting quarterly to evaluate our successes and make any adjustments at those times.
Mr. Spadoni?
Yes.
Excuse me, your time has expired, sir.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
Who's the next one, Arlene?
One is Wellman ad.
Arlene, you want to put up Wellman ad? Thank you.
Yes, I have it. It's able to see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, good. And I just unmuted you, Mr. Wellman, and I will start the 5-minute timer.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you,
Yes,
Mr.
we can
Wellman.
hear you.
Okay, just give me a second here. Can we start right now?
You on the
Yes.
clock.
Thanks. Good afternoon. I'm Phil Wellman, President, Marketing and Creative Director for Wellman Ad, a full-service branding, advertising, and design agency on the Monterey Peninsula. Next slide. Right now, Peninsula ratepayers are asking, what happened to Measure J? That's one question the Water Management District needs to answer. The public needs to understand the path ahead and the process that may lead to a CalAm buyout. They're counting on you to deliver a more affordable and sustainable water supply. Next. My agency's communication skills, media contacts, and deep understanding of Peninsula water issues uniquely qualifies us to be your public outreach agency. We're ready to help you provide the community with regular progress updates. We'll build your brand by educating them about who you are and what you're doing through newsletters, social media, print, digital, and TV ads, and create some real excitement around your vision for the future. Our remarkable success with Measure J demonstrates that we know how to reach your audience. Next. For over 30 years on the Monterey Peninsula, Wellman Ad has played a pivotal role in helping scores of companies, public agencies, nonprofit organizations, and political candidates to better understand their customer needs and meet them in a way that builds trust over time. Here's what a few of our long-term clients had to say about our work. Next. Wellman Ad excelled, this is from Hunter Harbath, the Monterey Salinas Transit. Wellman Ad excelled in taking our unique vision for the Jazz Bus Rapid Transit project from basic concept to reality, ultimately creating an unparalleled branding program that won a national first place award from the American Public Transportation Association. Now, that's going from concept to reality. We were responsible for the bus shelter design and a 60-year retrospective on the Monterey Jazz Festival displayed in 33 bus shelters across the peninsula. We also sourced and art directed the artist from Buenos Aires who is responsible for the artwork on those colorful buses you've seen all over town. Next. This is an example of the branding work we did. An ad on the left, a print ad on the left, an award-winning 60-second TV spot on the right that you can see on my website. Next. This is an example of a print ad and a TV spot we did 2 years ago for MST, promoting their real-time bus arrival information. It was also a grand award winner nationally. Next. Matthew Olin, CEO, Sierra Instruments. We've benefited enormously from having Wellman Ad as an integral part of our team for over a decade. My company gets the whole package, great advertising, design, and branding that drives our strategy. Phil is a primary contributor to our positioning in global markets and a key reason we're a leader in our industry. Next. These are 2 brochures that I did that describe their global divisions, auto test and flow measurement. Next. This is the inside spread of the auto test brochure. Next. Tim Jackson, Monterey Jazz Festival. Wellman Ad's creativity, professionalism, and strategic thinking helped lead the Monterey Jazz Festival in its journey to become one of the world's great music events. Next. This is 5 of the 15 posters that I art directed for the Jazz Festival over 15 years. Next. This is the branding work I did for their Next Generation Jazz Festival. Now, this is just a small sampling of a massive amount of work I did for them over that period of time. Next. And here's the infamous Measure J brochure, or famous Measure J brochure, depending on your perspective, that articulated a powerful community message that demanded change. It drove our success at the polls and is one of the big reasons we're all here today. Our clear strategic thinking and brilliant execution have played an absolutely essential role in all of our successes. Next.
Mr. Wellman, you're tired. You're 5 minutes.
Can I say one more thing? There's no way for me to track this. And there's one final statement I need to make.
Go ahead and make it.
Okay. We listen. That's our principal demonstration of perspective. Before anything we do, we ask these questions. What's your vision? What are your biggest challenges?
Point of order, Chair. 5 minutes has expired.
Well,
This is not fair to the other.
No way of determining
Let's
what.
have some order. Order. Mr. Wellman, your time is up. Your time is up, sir. Board, do you have any questions for any applicants?
But once they're there, it won't show the trouble of getting into the thing.
Board members, do you have any questions for any of the applicants?
As long as they get there, we need to give them
Edwards, I do.
Go ahead there, Director Hoffman.
Mr. Wellman, our RFP lists several things that were expected in an RFP, which was develop key messages, coordinate media outlets to place advertising, manage district email lists, prepare newsletters, develop opinions, editorials, manage event coordination, maintain websites and social media, attend key meetings and provide feedback. I guess my question is, in your presentation and your proposal, none of that was addressed. Why is that?
What I addressed in my proposal was what I felt was important in my proposal was to clearly convey to you my understanding of the issues, and that my approach to dealing with those issues is more listening based. So in other words, based on a sit down with you, I mean, certainly there was a recognition in my proposal that all of those things that you were looking for, I listed as things that I could do. But rather than jumping ahead and giving you some kind of an idea of what I would do based on next to no understanding of what your day-to-day needs are, was a foolish approach to me, because I knew that once I sat down with you, my understanding of what your needs would shift, and that the planning that we would be responsible for would be directly reflect that understanding. And that's the point I'm trying to make, that I'm trying to drive home here, is that every project I work on, I see as a singular project with singular needs. There's no comparison between what Public Water Now does and what the Jazz Festival does and what you do. The needs, the objectives, the strategies are all different. So there's no overlap. There's no conflict of interest. There is basically my understanding of what it is that the client requires, what their visions are, what their challenges are, and how we help them accomplish what they need to accomplish.
Thank you, Mr. Wellman. Any other questions, board members? Any other board members have any questions? Okay, let's take it out to the public, Arlene. Arlene, how many people are? Dave, how many people are in the meeting? Dave.
Just a second. Yes.
How many people are in the meeting?
There are 36 attendees outside of the 18 panelists, which includes the board and the presenting consultants.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go with 2 minutes, Arlene. 2-minute clock.
All right, Mr. Curcio, please present your.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, my comments are about Wellman Ad, and I do have some concerns I'll just tell you what my concerns are. In his cover letter, Mr. Wellman states that the Peninsula and District are ready to move forward with the steps necessary to complete the CalAm buyout. Does Mr. Wellman know something that the rest of us do not? Has the decision, has the CalAm takeover, has it already been decided that it's feasible? I don't believe that that's the case. We would recommend that the board postpone a decision and refer the proposals to an ad hoc committee for further investigation, or reopen the request for qualifications. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Present your comment.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I didn't know that I had my hand raised. I raised it way back before when we were talking about process. I would just, since I have the floor, I would just like to say I also think it's a good idea to postpone the decision, send it to ad hoc. It just, yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Arlene, it looks like John Tilley's hand is up.
Yes, I see that, and I'm unmuting him this moment.
Arlene,
Mr.
John
Tilley, please present your comment.
Thank you very much, Arlene. Board members, John Tilley, Coalition of Peninsula Business Co-Chair. Not speaking to Measure J, because I really don't want to get involved in Measure J. Really just speaking to the ethics of the district and how this could come to pass, that a public water now speaker mouthpiece is being considered for public outreach. Not speaking to the abilities of any of these ad firms. I think that these are in many ways good choices, but actually having Mr. Wellman included in this listing just blows me away. Dave earlier said that there was a study done of conflict of interest that might exist with these applicants. And I don't know how somebody that worked on Measure J campaign, was George Riley's campaign chair, maybe working with the Public Water Now candidates going forward, how that isn't seen as a conflict. I'm especially shocked to see that the idea of funds flowing from the public entity, which is the water district, to the household that houses Public Water Now, how that could not cause a problem, because it does for me, and I think it probably does for a lot of people in the public. And again, this is a feasibility study. So it's disturbing to know that despite this review, Mr. Wellman was not identified for conflicts as I previously itemized. I would suggest that either he be removed from the list due to those conflicts, and you choose one of the two remaining qualified candidates, or you go back to the ad hoc committee and you really give this some thought so that when you bring it back to the public, it's obvious to us that this wasn't being done in a way that was promoting an agenda that just is not fair to the feasibility study. The process should really, that's happening in the district, be focused on the water supply project, making sure that we have water for this community, and let's not try to have concerns ethically about how things are getting done.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Susan Scavone, please present your comment. Susan Scavone, please present your comment.
She appears to be remuted.
Yes. Ms. Scavone, I'm going to unmute you.
Okay, you've unmuted me, right? Thank you. I'm sorry. I have no preference here. I think the board should choose the firm that you think will be the most qualified and will meet your goals and costs. While I understand some of the comments made, I only want to point out that the district has had in the past and has current contracts with businesses and individuals who have actively and vocally been involved in local campaign politics on the other side of J, as well as in other local campaigns. So please be sure to not let implicit bias affect objective evaluation. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I see no other raised hands, Chair Edwards.
Thank you. Okay, back to the board. Are there any questions or motions that would you like to make?
Chair Edwards, this is Director Evans.
Go ahead, Director Evans.
I'd like to make the motion that we send this to an ad hoc committee.
Okay,
I would second that motion as long as the ad hoc committee are different than the public outreach committee.
I got a problem with
My
that one.
motion to have that in there as well.
Okay.
Director Edwards, this is Director Hoffman. I will second the motion if it hadn't already been seconded.
It's been second.
Okay.
It's been
excuse me.
second. Now we're on discussion. We want to go first on discussion on this item.
Director Hoffman will go first, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Quite honestly, my preference is that the district has a policy and does RFQs and RFPs in a more organized fashion. The fact that staff just goes to the phone book per se and just picks folks to submit proposals is not what public organizations should be doing. 99.9% of public agencies advertise RFQs in newspapers, on their websites, and get submittals. This ad hoc approach, for me, is just not the way to do business and doesn't get the best results from my experience of 30 plus years. That being said, if the alternative that we have here is an ad hoc committee to look at what I believe are two proposals that actually address the RFP, RFQ, then the lesser of evils is fine. But recognize that in most public agencies, when you only have two responsive responses, it goes back out to the public, it goes back out for RFQ, and does not, no decision is made at that point. So I support the motion as an alternative to going out to RFQ for an actual appropriate process. Thank you.
Thank you.
So could I ask a question, Dave Stolt? How was this advertised?
It was not advertised. The goal was to find somebody local. The universe of known local firms was pretty well understood, and it was distributed to that universe. The risk you have in advertising would be an expenditure with no result, and the Public Outreach Committee wanted quicker action that would not have allowed for a lengthy advertising period. And I would say 99.9% of the public agencies do not always advertise these positions.
But this encompassed essentially all the known local PR people.
It did. We even attempted to find one of the firms that was interviewed 7 years ago with no avail. And we, let's put it this way, we cast a pretty big net.
Thank you.
Okay. Director Adams, do you have any comments?
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I really feel bad about this because I chaired the Public Outreach Committee, and we had a robust discussion during the Public Outreach Committee meeting when many of the comments that are being made now were made. The reason that it's coming to the full board is, as I indicated before, that we were not able to come to consensus on what we felt we should do. So we felt bring it back to the board so we could have a more robust discussion and be able to come to conclusion. I'm sorry that it's going to take a little bit more time by taking it to an ad hoc committee, because I think personally that it is time for us to move forward with a well-rounded professional company. I think that at this point, we need to start building our team. We have a lot ahead of us. And I felt that moving forward more quickly would be a better approach. I must say that regarding the different people who chose to respond, I'm very conscious of the fact that this board is going to be under a microscope, and every decision that we make is going to be looked at very closely and very thoroughly. I'm very conscious of that. And I feel that it is important for us to go ahead and establish ourselves with a known company so that we are going to be able to move forward with a lot of the things we have on our plate. So I'm disappointed that it's going to go back to an ad hoc committee. Our board only meets once a month. It's going to take some months before we're able to start to move forward with the kind of strategic approach that I believe we need to have, a unified approach as we move forward. Those are my comments. And as I said, I'm disappointed. I'm also disappointed that I won't be able to serve on the committee because by the motion being added, by having added to the motion that anyone who served on the Public Outreach Committee cannot serve on this ad hoc committee, it takes away virtually half of the entire population of the board. I think that that's foolish.
Thank you, Director Adams. Director Riley, you have any comments?
Yes, please. I think the team approach that Director Adams just mentioned, and then all the consultants talked about too, was that the relationship with who, and that's my question, who is what's really important to the future. And so the relationship, as I understand it, with the PR firm, regardless who it is going to be with staff. It's not going to be with the board. The board will have input. The board will see the reactions. The board will have some sense about the strategic direction and priorities and so on. Absolutely, absolutely. But the relationship between our general manager and key staff and the consultant is what's key here. And I would like to see a role. First of all, I agree with Mary that, the entire committee that was served just being eliminated is not much different than just having a full board deal with this one way or the other right now or later. But I'm a little opposed to this ad hoc committee that excludes everybody else. That really means the full board has been outside of the Brown Act in terms of what I'm kind of thinking. What I'm asking is, can we decide to engage the general manager in an interview or an interaction with the consultants and come back with some recommendation quicker rather than later on maybe a process and maybe an outcome, but one of the two, because that's the relationship that's important as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you. Director Potter, do you have any comments?
Chair Edwards?
Well, let me get to Director Potter and I'll go back to you, Vice Chair.
Okay.
Director Potter, any comments?
No, I don't.
Thank you. Vice Chair, what do you have?
Director Riley just made to have, because I also agree with Mary that this should happen sooner than later. But I think maybe if the general manager reviews these candidates and comes back with some input would be appropriate.
Thank you. Okay, here's my comments.
No, Chair Edwards is fine.
No, wait, Director Hoffman. I'll let you cut in all day today.
Okay, I appreciate that. So I'll wait till after you, and I respect that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Because all I want to say is, I think the committee did what it's supposed to do, but it didn't make a decision. It came to the board. I'm against sending this work that needs to be done for the committee out to an ad hoc committee. If we go up another step and redo this, it should go back to the committee one more time. I'm against adding an ad hoc and not being on the committee. The chair of the outreach committee was right. We could have made a decision. And we made one by bringing this to the full board because of the 3 applicants. Now, I don't know who put in their ad hoc committee. We didn't talk about an ad hoc committee. The committee did not talk about sending this to somebody else. That committee is going to do its job if I'm on that committee. So I vote against the motion of sending it out to an ad hoc committee. I like redoing it, but I'm not going to send it to an ad hoc commission. Okay, Director Hoffman, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Edwards. I sympathize with the concept, and I don't necessarily agree with the concept of not having input from the Public Outreach Committee on the ad hoc committee. I think that there would be a loss of continuity and information. But that being said, I think, again, I'll go back to my original concern is that the process is flawed just from the get-go, and that when you get only 2 responsive RFPs, the typical response by the governing boards is to go back out, because only having to be able to choose between 2 actually responsive proposals generally indicates to go back out. So like I said, my second choice is ad hoc. My first choice is to actually do a legitimate RFQ. But I agree that we should not exclude on the ad hoc committee members of the public outreach committee. Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment. I'll withdraw my second on that. My reasoning behind excluding the public outreach committee was because they didn't come up with a decision in the first place. So I will withdraw my second on that motion.
So just point of clarification, the Public Outreach Committee did consider both going back out as well as attempting to identify additional firms, as well as going to the non-responding firms and try to find out what the reasons were for non-response to see if that would inform a better process a second time. The committee did discuss that and chose to bring these candidates to action, but I think the committee is very open to reopening the process if needed.
So Dave, if I may, as the maker of the motion, I accepted Jeannie's suggestion, Director Burns' suggestion, to exclude the members of the Public Outreach Committee for that very reason, is that the Public Outreach Committee did not make a decision. Now, having heard all of the input from the Public Outreach Committee members on why there was not a decision, I am in favor. And now that I don't have a second on my motion, I would like to change my motion. I would like to send this, I would like to make a motion to send this back to the Public Outreach Committee for their action, whether they want to either go back out on an RFQ or review these 3 that are here.
And
I would second that, but I think I have grave concern about the third applicant, Wellman. I think he didn't answer the RFQ, and I think it would be between the other 2 applicants.
And to speak to Director Burns' point, it may be to cast the net even wider in a second time. I would look to the chair of the Public Outreach Committee to perhaps just give us a little sense of what she might be willing to direct that committee to do.
Mr. Chairman, you have a motion. We're waiting for a second.
I think this is Director Hoffman. I will second Director Evans' motion for discussion purposes.
So I want to be sure I understand your question, Mr. Stolt. You're asking what my desire is for the committee as far as this entire process?
Well, I'm kind of asking, do you feel that the Public Outreach Committee can act in a manner to address all the concerns and, in fact, act in place of any ad hoc committee? But would it be your desire to maybe expand the universe of candidates in a process, just so I have a sense of whether, because I think that would address some of the concerns of the other board members, as well as give us on staff a sense of what we might be looking to do in a relatively quick fashion.
Yeah, I think, yes, I like where you're going. I think that what we'd like to do, what I would like to see the committee do, is to contact the other 8 entities that did not apply and encourage them to do so. I do not want to spend money advertising for a project like this. I think the money should be put into the process of the firm itself, rather than having to spend money advertising in a publication that will be, I think that would be a big waste of money and a big waste of time. My own experience in either applying for or providing RFPs and RFQs has not included an expensive advertising campaign to get there. So yes, I think we should send it back to the Public Outreach Committee, and we will talk about what we need to do there. But in the meantime, before it comes back to the committee, I would really request that the staff go back and contact the others who did not apply. And if there is the possibility of extending the net wider, I don't know if we included Santa Cruz County in the application opportunities or not, but I think that we should just cast it again, have a very short response time so that we can just get moving forward. Quite frankly, I think we have some very highly qualified candidates. In fact, one of the candidates, TMC, we're doing a lot of work with them with the county now, and well, be that as it may, I feel it's inappropriate for me to comment on something when we're not, that's not what the motion is. So you've heard what my thought is, and I know that there's a motion on the floor, so we'll wait to see what happens with that. But in the meantime, I think that bringing it back to the Public Outreach Committee is a great idea. And by the time we have our August meeting, we'll be able to come back with a response and move forward.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, sorry, I do have another comment, and I think Director Riley was absolutely point on in that it is going to be the staff that deals with the committee, the organization that we choose far more than any of us on the board. So as we proceed with our discussion, I do expect that the general manager would have the opportunity to meet with and know who the various players are that we're looking at, which I think you probably already did anyway. So there you have it.
Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Director Rao.
I would support the motion to refer it back. I may be one of the hot button people on that committee. I'm suggesting two things here. One is that the committee focus on the relationship between the PR consultant and the general manager and the professional staff. That should be the focus of the interaction and discussion that we ought to have. And I will offer this as a possibility. As long as I can be on the committee, I will take a pass on participating. I mean, I want to open the meeting as a member, but I would be very willing to pass to my alternate the discussion that takes place and the decision that comes out of the committee. But I don't want to be off the committee. I want to have, 10 minutes in the beginning, and then I'll defer, whatever it is it takes. And maybe Laredo can comment on that, but I will be willing to do that to help make the process, go forward.
Director Edwards, if I could comment.
Go ahead, Director Hoffman. Go ahead and make a comment.
Yeah. I appreciate Director Riley's consideration, but quite frankly, I appreciate his analytical skills and his ability to evaluate proposals regardless. And so I personally don't feel that there's a need for Director Riley to not participate fully in the discussions of the Public Outreach Committee as hopefully as there's additional outreach and we get additional responsive proposals, hopefully, fingers crossed. So for me, I don't think that aspect of what he's offering, I don't need that. Let me just put it that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, here's my comments, and then we're going to take the vote. I appreciate it going back to the committee that it should be at, public outreach. One thing I will say this, we are a public agency and everybody can apply to whatever they want to apply to, not crossing out anybody. It's up to the directors to understand where is that going, where it's going, the ethics of it, the ethics of it. So I'm not going to exclude anybody from applying for anything that we have at a public agency. It be left up to the committee and the directors. Now, the reason why you got this is to let you know that we was thinking about that. We was conflicting on that. But I'm going to support the motion, and I'm glad that we sent it back to the correct committee outreach. Roll call vote, please, Arlene.
Right. Director Sutter.
Aye.
Director Adams.
Aye.
Director.
Aye.
Director Evans.
Aye.
Director Evans. Director Riley.
Aye.
Director Hoffman.
Yes.
And Director Edwards.
Yes.
Unanimous approval.
Thank you, 7-0. All right, General Manager, what's the next hot one?
Of the directors are time constrained, so we're moving to item 1, the action item. We'll see how long this takes, and if necessary, we may defer some of the additional discussion. To that end, we already presented this item at the July 20th board meeting. It is up to the board to make a decision to rehear any of that presentation or go straight to questions and public comment and bring it back.
Okay. Any board questions right now? All right, Director Rowley.
It's more of a process, I think, a question. There were some questions asked at the last meeting, particularly about what the cost estimate was. Is it appropriate to get that information first before we go to public hearing? That was one specific question.
General Manager?
Yeah, we can do that, absolutely. I guess I should give you some background. Subsequent to the July 20th meeting, General Counsel Laredo and myself had a call with the legal team from Marina Coast Water District, and I believe their general manager was on that call. We asked them to pose some of their issues and questions. We received 20 of their questions, about 13 or 14 of which we then asked Cal-Am in a separate meeting with the Cal-Am representatives. I can tell you that, this is a delicate issue, and almost every question had 2 different answers, which is part of the conundrum here. Subsequent to that, the project manager for Denise Duffy and Associates specifically addressed the letter from Attorney Wilkins with a supplemental. That's item 1C that's been attached to this staff note that was not in the original staff note. Once it went to publication, we forwarded that staff note link to the Marina Coast team. You received 2 letters, one from Attorney Wilkins and one from their general manager, and then a series of other letters or emails from members of the public. And that's kind of where we've gotten to. I know there's been direct inquiry from at least 3 directors as to where this is going, and there's been some additional questions raised. This may be the opportunity to raise those questions. John Lear is available on our staff. There are some schematics that are available to be presented. On the phone, on the attendees list are Chris Cook of Cal-Am, Tim O'Halloran of Cal-Am, and some others, including Tyler Potter of Denise Duffy and Associates, the environmental firm.
Jim, is anybody in the meeting from Marina Coast?
Yes.
Thank you. Let's get them all out there.
Yeah, they're all out there. Attorney Wilkins is represented, as are a number of others, including their board chair, Dr. Moore.
Okay, any board questions at this time before I open it up?
Chair Edwards.
Go ahead, Director Hoffman.
Dave, just to clarify that the CEQA process that we went through for this addendum 6 met all the requirements of the CEQA process, so we complied with the CEQA process as it relates to addendum 6.
Correct. And a number of the issues that have been raised from outside parties are not directly related to environmental review.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with that assessment.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Laredo. Mr. Hoffman, any more questions?
Chair, not at this time. Thank you.
Okay, any other board questions?
Chair
Before I
Edwards, this is
Yes, go
Director
ahead.
Evans. I do have a question. I actually have many questions.
Go
but
ahead,
the one
you
that
can
I
have
want to
3
get
of them.
Pardon?
You can have about 3 and then we're gonna go to somebody else and we'll come back to you.
Very well. But the one that I would like answered is, I don't know if you guys can see this. But I would like to know, is there a difference between this pipeline in the red and this pipeline in the red?
Yeah, we can have that answered. One of those appears to be from the Pure Water Monterey SEIR, and one appears to be from our addendum. Keep in mind the project description or the project modifications for the Pure Water included some additional extraction wells related to that pipeline. But John Lear, are you capable, or should we get a Cal-Am rep on there?
So, Dave, thank you. I appreciate that you know your pictures well. That is correct. One was from the Pure Water Monterey supplemental EIR, and one was from this current addendum. So, well done. You've passed the first test. But I would, I would like to get an answer. I would prefer an answer from Cal-Am. No offense, John.
Yeah, so Tim or Chris, if you want to raise your hand as to who's going to respond on that. And I don't know if Tyler, since you wrote the project description, Ian is on the line as well, Ian Crooks. So. And this is the challenge when we don't know who's the lead. Chris?
Okay. Just unmuted Ian. Ian, did you want to defer to someone else? I'll unmute. Chris has raised his hand. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, and Arlene.
Go ahead and speak. Yes.
Chris and I spoke earlier today, and I think for purposes of Cal-Am, he'll be the primary fielder of any questions, and then if he needs to rely on somebody else, he'll redirect.
All right, great. I've just unmuted him, so.
Yes, thank you, Arlene. Thank you, board. So in terms of the pipelines themselves, I mean, they do run the supplemental EIR for Pure Water Monterey and this addendum for the ASR. They do both run in general Jim Moore from the Monterey pipeline location, approximately 1.3 miles. So the routing is similar. However, the purpose and intent is different of the two in terms of right now it's immediate need for ASR with CDO milestones being missed. So that's the reason why it's there. And we've added, the dechlor facilities at the ASR sites to help with that extraction amount needed. So while the pipeline itself is similar for the Pure Water Monterey expansion, the need is quite different in terms of CDO milestones being missed right now. We have the CDO cliff at the end of 2021 with the likelihood that we won't have a new water supply online. So really needing to try and optimize the ASR right now with these new conditions. And, you know, that was one where I was thinking that we needed to inject and extract, and that idea of a parallel pipeline was something that had been discussed previously. So we thought that this was a good application to help us right now as a community.
So let me ask this then. If the Pure Water Monterey expansion SEIR is certified and that project is built, will we then have, and this pipeline is built, will we then have two pipelines in almost the same location doing almost the same thing?
No, I don't think we need that supplemental EIR for the Pure Water Monterey with this parallel pipeline. I haven't looked too much at the parallel supplemental EIR parallel pipeline in a while, so I can't say exactly, but my gut instinct is that we would not need that additional one. We'd have the operational flexibility to be more efficient with the Pure Water Monterey expansion also.
So what you're saying is that there are two different pipelines, but you don't need them both. You just need this one.
Well, yeah, no, and what I'm saying is that they're very similar pipelines. The routing is similar. There might be slight differences. I haven't compared them at the connection point to the Monterey pipeline. There may be one might connect south of the Monterey pipeline, the other one north, but you can configure the isolation valves to probably be able to work in either configuration. So there's little details that may be different, but I think we could make it operationally work for both scenarios.
So it sounds like, again, there was a request in two different EIRs to look at two different pipelines, but you don't really need both pipelines. Just trying to get clarification. That's what it's sounding like to me.
So if we build this parallel pipeline for the Pure Water Monterey expansion, I do not see us needing that full parallel pipeline for this now. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other question I have is on page 12 of, I believe it's the packet, the addendum states that construction is anticipated to begin in January of 2021 and will last approximately 8 months. In the staff note at the bottom of page 1, it states that if we adopt the addendum at the July meeting, that the construction of the pipeline would begin in August 2020. So I'd like to get clarification on when the construction would begin. And also, does this need to go before the Water Supply Project Governance Board? And if so, construction is to begin in August 2020. Do you have the design and all permits already lined up, since August begins tomorrow?
Yeah, so in terms of construction, the design is close to being complete. We do not have all permits yet, and we still need to send it out to bid, and we need to get contracts from contractors and then do construction of the pipeline. So I believe that August date was probably when the previous board meeting, July 20th, was, and you know, trying to do an aggressive schedule. But yeah, realistically, you know, I think there's pre-construction activities, you know, that might be able to occur, but actual construction would likely need to move out. And unfortunately, you know, with that start date moving out with delays with approvals like this, it just makes it harder to meet the end 2021 deadline for construction too. I think it's aggressive. We're trying to get aggressive with the schedule, and you can only get so aggressive realistically. So I think you're right, that August 20th date is too aggressive. It'll probably move out at least to September, just based on waiting for, you know, this approval, and then you know, the rest of the process too will take time. The acquisition of pipe materials has a long lead time, and then construction.
So is the intent to get this pipeline constructed for the upcoming ASR season?
That would be the ideal scenario. If we could get it all constructed for this upcoming ASR season, then we'd be maximizing ASR. But the reality is, the ASR season starts in December, and this is a large project, and any project manager would say that this is aggressive schedule even to meet year end of next year. So it's the end date that's really the critical point here. We have a CDO cliff at 2021, and just on my experience with the Monterey Pipeline, we're pushing it right now just to meet that. So
Okay.
I'd love to meet this ASR season. I think it would add a lot of benefit if we got like a 16-17 water year. But, you know, project managers and Director Evans, you know this. I mean, these projects take time. So, and
Yes.
you know the phases. That's why you're asking the question. So
That's why I'm asking the question, because it doesn't seem like this is an urgent project that needs to be looked at today, because it wouldn't be complete to take advantage of the full ASR year this year. So thank you. I believe I've used up all my questions. I'll turn it back to the chair.
Chair. Somebody. Thank you. Chris, could you respond to the question about what's the projected cost of this project?
Y'all find Chris again. Arlene, your mic is off.
I think they settled in at 5.8 million.
I'm trying to get Chris unmuted.
Okay.
Let me try over on this side, possibly get him unmuted there. I apologize.
You're doing a hell of a job, Arlene. Don't worry about it.
I cannot to unmute yourself because for some reason, I cannot unmute you.
You don't want to talk to Riley. Jim, what was that count?
37 attendees.
Okay. Director Riley, I think the general manager said it's about 5.5 million.
Well, I still.
Yeah, 5.8 is the most recent number we've heard. In previous sessions with water supply planning, as well as the last board meeting, we heard 5 to 6. So I think that's where they're at. Arlene, are you unable to mute anybody? Unmute anybody? You could go to Tim. Try Tim O'Halloran and see if his.
Oh, let's Tim O'Halloran. Great. Let me go to Tim's name. Okay, got Tim. Here. Tim, I just unmuted your mic.
Okay, thank you, Arlene. Yeah, that's correct. Our engineer's estimate is 5.8 million.
And I have a follow-up question, not just on money, but another related issue.
Go ahead.
I'm following up a little bit on Director Evans' questions about the utility of this pipeline. If the pipeline was suggested to be, that was included in the SEIR for the Clearwater Monterey expansion, that was related to a supply that was substantial. It seems to me that this proposed pipeline is very, very similar, and it's probably 95% similar. But it's designed to treat ASR, which is much less guaranteed supply, much more erratic supply. I'm just curious about how the let me say it, I'm curious about what the cost benefit is of a $5.8 million project that can do episodic improvements with ASR water compared to the same project essentially that was in the SEIR for the pure water expansion that treated a solid supply option that was constant. So I'm trying to get a sense about how does an episodic December, May, I'm thinking those are the months that we're mainly concerned about. How does that justify this expense? In your opinion?
Dave, if you'd like me to answer to some of the episodic nature of the pipeline, I can.
Go ahead and get started because I'm trying to do math on my phone right now with
okay
injection days.
Thank you, Director Riley. The months that would be needed for dual direction and for a simultaneous ASR injection and pure water Monterey operation would be the months of March, April, and May. So it's essentially the second half of the ASR season when the Santa Margarita facility would move into production and produce water to move it towards the Forest Lake tanks. And so what that means then, I did do an analysis of the last 25 years of stream flow at the Carmel River and applied our permit conditions to those rivers or to those flows in the river. And if you miss 3 months, which would be March, April, May, that is an average of 41 days of ASR a year that's would be foregone to produce pure water Monterey. And if you did it just April, May, that would be 23 days, an average of 23 days a year. So it would be affecting the average year. And then you can take, 15, 16, 17, up to 20 acre feet per day and figure out volumes that you would.
Yeah. So I even broke it down to 12 acre feet, under the assumption that we were dialing it back for Forest Lake tank levels for fire protection, who knows what. At 12 acre feet, the 23 lost days is 276 acre feet a year. The 41 lost days is 492 acre feet per year. And that's at 12. So that's approximately 2/3 of the max rate that it could be pumped at.
I guess my question really is kind of the unit cost of this expense related to the value of that volume of water, whatever the volume is. I'm just trying to get a sense of this project was included in the pure water expansion related to a specific water supply. And now we're looking at it as related to, and I'm not going to doubt your numbers at all, but the episodic and much lower volume. I'm trying to get a sense of if this project goes forward and with district approval, we may be approving a project that is very expensive with a much less water volume available for benefit for the entire community. And is that a good decision? I'm just looking at a cost benefit comparison with this project, the way it's designed and the way it's directed. Maybe that's a statement, not a question.
Oh yeah, well you're good at that. Any other questions?
Director Hoffman has a couple, if that's okay.
Go ahead, Director Hoffman.
And this could be directed at Cal-Am. And again, I think Director Evans raised some very salient points, actually, on, as well as Director Riley, on cost benefit for the project. And I guess my question has always been operationally, and as it relates to what we're deciding today, which is whether or not we should certify an addendum to a CEQA document for a little bit more than a mile stretch of pipeline, and whether we need to bifurcate the environmental aspect versus the operational aspects at this point. And so I would just say that maybe we need to focus on what our decision that we're looking at today. I don't think we're approving the concept of a pipeline, parallel pipeline per se. We're just saying, are the environmental impacts adequately addressed in the agenda? So I have concerns about the cost effectiveness of doing this, quite frankly. But I think going back to where our decision point is today, I think those are two different things. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Hoffman. Director Potter, do you have any comments before we take it out to the public? Director Potter.
I have no questions.
Thank you, sir. Director Adams, do you have any comments before we take it out to the public? Director Adams?
I'm here.
Do you have any comments before we take it to the public?
No.
Okay, no. Thank you, ma'am. Vice Chair, do you have anything?
Not really, other than I just am concerned that we need to make sure that both projects are operating at their maximum. And I would hate to see us analyze this to death and find out that we are missing the optimum production on both projects.
All right, thank you. Here's a couple of questions. I think Director Evans got some of my questions answered for me. One of my questions is this: General Manager, have you looked at the General Manager's letter from Marina Coast?
I have, and
the Carmel River dam water or whatever. Can we switch that out? Have you looked at that?
yeah, I have. Suggesting how another utility should operate is a slippery slope. There are a variety of water sources that are available. This effort didn't start with whether desal exists or not. We often look at it in a vacuum without desal and what would be needed. So to try to kind of reconfigure the operations of the CalAm system in order to not need it is something that has some merit. I mean, we've always talked about pockets of water that are available. I don't believe that it's a complete panacea. We would still be at risk of only injecting 3 out of 6 months or 4 out of 6 months. Keep in mind, part of this is dechlorination, which gets you an extra month of productivity out of the system because you don't have to rest a 30-day period before extraction. So, we always just approach it from an operational flexibility standpoint, and we really haven't studied the statements made by Mr. Vandermotten. He is, however, available and did have his hand raised earlier, but I can't vet his letter today at this time.
So you need a little bit more time. That's all I was looking for. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, Arlene, I want to open it up to Marina Coast and CalAm to make any comments they want to make on this.
All right. Mr. Vandermaten, I have unmuted your mic.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Chair Edwards. Vandermotten, Marina Coast General Manager. Marina Coast is the owner of the potable water pipeline in General Jim Moore that is used for ASR. We are also partners with Monterey One Water on the Pure Water Monterey project and own the recycled water pipeline in General Jamor that provides water for our needs and the water that actually goes into the Pure Water Monterey injection wells. So we're absolutely supportive of both ASR and Pure Water Monterey projects. And the comments that we've submitted in letter form and made here are intended to express our continued desire to partner on those projects, but we also have some very real concerns that should be addressed prior to any approvals of the bypass project, including the CEQA, which apparently would kick off the construction soon. For starters, the ASR pipeline is also very important and necessary to serve our future customers in South Ord. So if there are to be any changes to how that pipe is used, especially if it's connected to any new sources of water or new infrastructure, it could impact our operations. And we really need to fully understand and ensure that doesn't impact our needs and any of our operating permits. We do appreciate the water management staff discussing and attempting to get answers to our questions from Cal-Am following your July 24 meeting, but there still remains many unanswered questions, unresolved concerns about the impacts of that pipe and the future uses of that pipe. One major question is how the proposed Cal-Am desal pipe is included and tied into the ASR system along with our pipes. And the reason we have that question is there is a water management district document that shows desal as one function of the bypass pipeline project. And that document, unfortunately, is woefully lacking in a lot of detail without any annotation showing our existing facilities, typical valving, metering, etc. And so that the document I'm referring to is also included as an attachment from our legal counsel, Remy Musa-Manley, as attachment 1, if you would like to see what document I'm speaking to. Another concern is that there really has been no discussion on how the pipeline would be operated with the various water supplies and infrastructures tied together. And typically prior to moving ahead on approving something like this bypass project, there would be an agreement on how to operate and how to respond to any water quality issues that arise, pressure issues, and the like. This hasn't been done. We believe there is also another option that the chair had brought up at looking at permit 21330, and I do appreciate General Manager Stoltz's comment about commenting on other systems operations, and I think we're just offering this as some insights, maybe some opportunities to look at something, and I understand that that's really not in our responsibility, but there's more detail in my letter there. But in closing, our board had already gone out on record in October of 2019 to state that the potable water pipeline owned by MCW in General Jamor has the capacity to serve ASR, Pure Water Monterey expansion, and our future uses. And I'm also authorized by that board to negotiate the use of that pipeline with the Water Management District and Cal-Am for those uses. And so today we really request that the Water Management District really defer any approval of the Addendum 6 until we've had that opportunity to discuss these issues raised today. Allow us to continue to work together to optimize ASR uses and ensure that any proposed changes by this bypass pipeline project do not impact our ability to use the pipeline for our own needs. And so thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Arlene, let's see if anybody from Cal-Am want to make a comment. 3 minutes.
Mr. Chair, there is another raised hand by the attorney for Marina Coast.
Okay, let's go to her. Y'all try to contact Cal-Am.
Yeah, and Chris Cook is back online. His connection was dropped, and he says he's back.
Okay, Arlene, give Marina Coast attorney 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, board members. Chip Wilkins for Marina Coast Water District, and I submitted a letter that you all have, and I won't repeat everything in that letter. I think one of the main points that we want to make is that this pipeline is designed, it's sized to support desal. It may be useful for ASR, it may be useful for Pure Water Monterey, the expansion project, possibly the base project, but it's here and it's being proposed to eliminate an obstacle to the desal project. And we provided a documentation of that from your own staff report. That's attachment 1, as well as the addendum that shows that this is going to be hooked up to Cal-Am's Monterey Peninsula Water Supply Project desal pipeline that currently doesn't go to anywhere. And in our CEQA comments, we made it clear that if you're going to do that, you have to, it really should be approved by the CPUC, because that's what it's really, the purpose is for, at least CalAM's purpose in our opinion. And you can't ignore the cumulative impacts of the pipeline in terms of the other pipelines CalAM is constructing. And you can't forget to look at growth inducing impacts. And I think that's one of the main points we have is your own board has determined that the proposed desal plant would supply well more water than CalAM needs, not only for the current situation, but also any projects that might be permitted or have been evaluated in any land use plan. This project would remove an obstacle to growth. The Coastal Commission has identified this as an obstacle because there isn't sufficient pipeline capacity for the desal project. So I think you can't ignore that fact here. For that reason and the other reasons explained in our letter, we don't think the addendum is adequate. And the only other point I'd like to make on the addendum is you're certifying, approving the project based on an addendum. This isn't like an EIR. You're providing a tweak to a prior EIR. So the approval is joint. You're not just approving an environmental document here. You're approving a project and you adopt an addendum for it. So bifurcating this wouldn't make any sense from a CEQA standpoint, but you can ask your own counsel that question. With that, I'm just here to answer any questions. And as Keith, Mr. Vandermont said, Marina Coast does not oppose desal, and we want to support ASR and all the rest of your projects, and we're here to partner with you. We suggest you delay this project for a couple months, work with us, and we're confident we can come up with a solution that's beneficial for the water district and the region. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Arlene, let's see what CalAM have to say. You got 3 minutes.
Chris, I'm unmuting you. And please present your comment.
Thank you. So as mentioned at the July 20th board meeting, the parallel pipeline is critical now for ASR and is a necessary component of the distribution system, even more so if we reach the CDO cliff with no new water supply. There is no other options. I mean, there's no other alternatives for ASR, and there are other options for desal. So this is a critical ASR item right now. It's also one where it's a good way to show the State Water Resources Control Board that our community is doing everything it can to offset Carmel River pumping while our CDO milestones are missed. I believe the board or Dave recently sent a letter to State Water Resources Control Board, asking us to look again at those milestones and the date. And I think it is critical that we show the state board that we are trying to maximize our existing water supplies during this time when we're going to get reductions off the Carmel River, and we could use every drop we could get. In terms of Director Riley's comments about cost, I think it's one where it's important to look at it from a cost versus benefit perspective and the risk that's associated. So I believe I heard for ASR, it's originally about $13.50 per acre foot. With the new pipeline and new Carmel Valley wells to optimize this, you're still looking at some of the least cost per dollar acre foot of the sources. So that's something I know people have looked at in the past, and the risk is water rationing. So it puts me in a position as a director of operations of having to decide, do I keep ASR running or do I need to stop it to increase flows from Seaside Basin to offset the Carmel River? And, I'll have to stop it to increase flows to offset Carmel River. So that's not a position that I want to be in. I know Water Management District is proud of their ASR program, and I would like to see them optimize that. In terms of timeline, I think that, if we can make it happen this ASR season, we'll get more benefit. But, the reality is we're aggressively pushing to meet that 2021. And, even if, we go for a couple of years with no new water supply, that's a couple of years the community could be in rationing. And that's a tough position to be in. We have looked at Marina's comments. We've talked with Dave. The Seaside native water is not enough. It's only 10 acre feet a day. It was in our charts. The, permit that Manager Vandermont was talking about, as our operations work, that doesn't quite make sense because you need to supply the community anyways when you're injecting, but that gets more into the details of operations. So I do think it's critical, and I think it's important to maximize ASR, which I know is a critical component for Water Management District.
Thank you, sir. Time's up. Arlene, let's take it to the public for 2 minutes.
And before we do, Mr. Chairman, I do want to address something I heard from Mr. Vandermotten. He referred to a schematic, which is attachment A of Chip Wilkins' letter, which came from the presentation that John Lear had available for the July 20th board meeting. And just point of clarification, that schematic has 3 different scenarios on it. And the one that is labeled and highlighted in attachment A of his letter that does say MPWSP desalination, winter operations, and ASR injection does not show the parallel pipeline, the new parallel pipeline. And so I think it's important because the eye gravitates to a label, but in that particular schematic, the new pipeline isn't part of that picture. So I just wanted to clarify there.
Thank you, sir. All right, Arlene, 2 minutes to the public each.
Melody Krislock, I just unmuted your mic. Please present your comment.
The reason people passed Measure J was because they felt it would lower their water bills. They believed the Water Management District would be more fiscally responsible than Cal-Am has been, and that you would spend their money wisely in the public interest. Is this Cal-Am pipeline really critical? Of course, ASR is important, but if this pipeline costs $6 million, this would be a very expensive solution for a very small amount of water. I'm surprised to hear any further talk of rationing. Please address that. Shouldn't there be a cost-benefit analysis prior to making a decision on this? Are more cost-effective solutions available? Why is Cal-Am asking for this now? When Cal-Am asked Monterey 1 to block the Pure Water Monterey expansion, they lost the pipeline they needed for desal. A month later, they asked you to do an EIR on this pipeline. This is not a coincidence. I hope you will consider the timing and motivation of Cal-Am's request. This bypass pipeline is clearly needed for Cal-Am's desal because they cannot use Marina Coast Pipeline. The lack of this pipeline is one of the factors the Coastal Commission has raised as grounds for denial of Cal-Am's desal project. If your board opposes Cal-Am's desal, why would you approve a pipeline that will help Cal-Am get their desal approved? If this pipeline is needed at all, why not wait and see how the Coastal Commission rules before approving it? Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael Bear, I have just unmuted you. Please present your comment.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Looks like we all survived July, so keep up the good work. And I just want to shout out to John. That is quite a guitar collection that you have, young man. So I want to first endorse, I just saw the letter from Dr. Keith Vandermotten, and he raises a lot of issues about the complexities. And basically, it's unclear exactly what the pipeline is for. So one of the things that Melody just said is, and the lawyer had said, this is sized to accommodate the pipeline, to accommodate desal if it happens. We don't know if it's going to happen. We'll know a lot more in September, the likelihood. If you end up building a too large pipeline for something you don't need, that reminds me so much of the Monterey Pipeline, which I just want to revisit. It was over $50 million. It tore up our city for 2 years, and we were told that it was going to solve the ASR problem. It would increase capacity. And I think what happened, it was so oversized that you had pressure issues. In the first year, and maybe the second, it did not perform as well as what it replaced. And so this is an example of the piecemeal. We need this piece. We're going to get this piece. There's no overall plan for a regional supply. I want to give you just a metaphor example, a little bit humorous. Suppose you're building a house, your in-laws are coming to visit, and you know they're going to need to use the bathroom, so you decide you're going to build the bathroom first so they can do their business and wash their hands. Then you can figure out how the rest of the house is going to be laid out and built. It's as absurd as building a $1 billion desal plant when you haven't yet secured the water rights. It's typical Cal-Am. Let's do it right. Talk to Marina Coast, get a clear idea what you're doing, and size it the way it needs to be sized if it's needed at all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan Schiavone, I just unmuted you. Please present your comment.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for letting me speak. Cal-Am's sudden push for this bypass pipeline is questionable. It appears that Cal-Am, working to suppress approval of the Pure Water Monterey expansion SEIR, also blocked its completion of the $500,000 pipeline. In reality, the SEIR should be certified. Now it appears that they want to spend $5 to $6 million of ratepayers' money to make up for it. The proposed pipeline does not appear to be truly needed. It appears it would not be used much since river flows may only be diverted if in excess of the steelhead bypass flow requirements for ASR purposes. And this appears to be done infrequently, only 2 months of the year since 2010. So it will not transport much water at a very high cost of construction and is also suspiciously placed exactly where Cal-Am needs a pipe for the desal project, to which I am opposed. I am concerned this is another incident of Cal-Am attempting to skirt process and piecemeal missing project components. Please do not approve this item today and consider some of the suggested alternatives, such as a petition to the SWRCB to amend permit 21330. This is a rational and cost-saving alternative that should be seriously considered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Edwards, I hand.
Wow.
Oh, I do. Excuse me. We do have a raised hand. John Tilley, I'm going to unmute you.
Thank you very much, Arlene. Would encourage the members of the board to approve this item. It's great to see something happening that is actual piece of a sustainable water supply project going in place. This is what we've been looking for in this region for quite some time. So I would encourage you to go ahead and approve this item, put the pieces in place to get us off of the Carmel River and really satisfy the requirements of this community and the dictates from our friends in Sacramento. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tilley. Anyone else?
Yes, I see Tom Moore. Mr. Moore, I'm going to unmute you. Please present your comment.
Thank you very much. I hope you all can hear me. Appreciate your taking the time to listen to us. Today you are faced potentially with an environmental decision under the California Environmental Quality Act. As I understand that act, you must consider both the no action option, and you must also consider any other options which have lesser environmental impacts if the current proposal has some environmental impacts that cannot be mitigated. Mr. Vandermont has mentioned, as have several other folks, this existing State Water Resources Control Board permit 21330 that Cal-Am has to take water from the Carmel River in the December to May timeframe, but it's limited to a certain subsection of their service area. It has been pointed out that if that water could be used throughout the service area, a simple modification to that permit, you might be able to completely avoid all of the environmental impacts of the proposed pipeline by not building it in the first place. In addition, Marina Coast has provided you a supplemental report from our water expert, Peter Mayer, that indicates that at least through 10 action, you will still be able to, or Cal-Am, whoever the purveyor is, will be able to meet the demand not only of the existing Cal-Am customers,
but with the AMBAG projected growth amounts. So you must consider and do the appropriate environmental analysis of these almost no environmental demand, environmental impact alternatives, which seem to have been presented to you. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes. Just unmuted you. Please present your comment. Anna, let me unmute you, please.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Now, and you can now present your comment.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Anna Thompson, and I'm a Calais ratepayer. I urge you to please not to adopt this resolution at this time. There are too many objections and too many unresolved issues. Why is it that Calais, a monopoly, is able to present and request things without having a full cost-benefit analysis? I do not understand that, because you know a monopoly, they do profit-benefit analysis. They don't do cost-benefit analysis. So as a ratepayer, I urge you to please represent us, the public, and make sure that everything the CalAm is requesting, it has a cost-benefit analysis. Even if you don't do anything, that should be also considered. So I say, please, at this time, until everything is clear and a proper cost-benefit analysis is done, then please do not pass it now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Mr. Hoyer, I'm going to unmute your mic. Please present your comment.
Thank you. Greetings. I'm Rick. I'm a resident of Monterey, also a business owner in Monterey. Actually, I want to respond to a couple of points that Molly Evans made. It was, since it might not meet this water year for ASR, there's no rush. What was also said was, in order to get it done in time for the CDO milestone next year, any delay potentially puts that at risk. And you're going to be a whole lot better in talking to the CDO milestones if you're able to maximize ASR. And Mr. Riley talked about, well, we could wait and have this with the Pure Water Monterey expansion. But it was also said that if we build this pipeline now to benefit ASR, it would also be able to be used for the Pure Water Monterey expansion. So if you end up having that and get past the issues of not having a SER approved and Salinas Valley not wanting you taking their water and all the other issues with it, and it would happen, you would already have this in place. So the cost, that the benefit at that point would have to bring in both projects. But in the meantime, you're getting the benefit with ASR. There's been a whole lot of things stated, particularly by Marina Coast, who've done more to try to derail all water projects, going to court, generally, to my knowledge, losing every case and all the rest, and now they're trying to do it here. Let's move forward and maximize ASR. You've been told how many days of ASR you would lose if this doesn't happen. We can't afford to lose any bit of water. We need to maximize all sources that we can do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mark Kelly, I'm going to unmute you.
Arlene,
present your comment.
Arlene, before Mr. Kelly speaks, would you please mute John Tilley? His feedback is affecting my ability to hear.
Thank you, Mom.
I'm sorry. Who should I mute?
Tilly, JT.
All right.
Thank you, Molly.
All right. Mr. Kelly, I muted you. Please present your comment.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Director and members of the board. I'd like to make just a very brief comment in support of the staff recommendation. And really what got it for me was Director Evans' initial questions, which I thought were spot on. And specifically, could we do the one pipeline instead of two, which was just mentioned by Mr. Hoyer? And the answer was yes. So the fact of the matter is, if we get to the expansion of Pure Water Monterey and we have the SR pipeline built, we have a pipeline that can function for two purposes. Secondly, we keep on coming up with reasons to say no to new water supply, we collectively. And we do have an issue with our own state water board we need to pay attention to for the end of next year. And I'm not going to get into the subject of rationing and all of those things, but we need to start saying yes to some things. And I do appreciate the effort that has gone on, particularly John's effort on the district board in this CEQA document. I took time to read almost the entire thing. It is really, really well done. And I hope that for the sake of our water supply and our near-term future, which means have it built at least by the end of next year, that you will all support the staff's recommendation for today. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Chair, I do want to let you know.
Wait a minute. Let's get through this.
Oh, do we have more?
Yes.
Any more, Arlene?
Wayne Kelly, I'm going to unmute you so that you can present your comment. Please proceed. Oh, let me unmute you, Mr. Kelly.
Hey, can you hear me?
Go ahead, sir.
Yes, please proceed.
Hey, I'm really big on the cost benefit of this project. To me, that's really important. I mean, you don't buy, another thing that bugs me about this is you don't buy tires for a car that you don't have yet. And I kind of feel like that's the deal with this this pipeline. I just think that we should go with what's sufficient and what's working for the pure water project and this and that. But to me, just my opinion, I just don't see buying tires for a car we don't have yet. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Chair Edwards, I see no other raised hands.
Okay, public comment on this item is closed. Thank you. General Manager, you had some comments.
Mr. Chairman, before Mr. Stolt comments, I would like to direct the attention of the board to what is before you in this. I believe Mr. Hoffman accurately characterized it. What is before you is not the question of the project itself. You are not approving or disapproving the project. You are acting on the CEQA addendum itself. The resolution calls for the certification of the addendum. This is not the approval of the project.
Thank you, Mr. Laredo. General Manager, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to let you know that prior to the meeting, Mr. Potter gave me a 5:15 hard stop. Maybe there's some wiggle room in there for a vote, but we will be losing him.
Tragically, sir.
All right, thank you. It's back to the board.
Chair Edwards.
Yes, go ahead.
This is Director Byrne. I'd like to make a motion to approve the recommendation, the staff recommendation to adopt the resolution for the bypass pipeline.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Chair Edwards, Director Hoffman seconds.
Okay, we got a motion to approve by Vice Chair, second by Director Hoffman. Discussion.
If I may, this is Director Evans.
Go ahead, Director Evans.
Thank you. I understand that we're doing this for ASR, and I do not want to speak against doing something for ASR. Since we are speaking on the environmental piece of it, I do have some concerns. I feel that by the California Code, section 15164, an addendum to an EIR, specifically states that these are minor technical changes to do an addendum, and I feel that this pipeline is more than a minor technical change, and I'd like to have that explored. I also am interested in exploring Marina Coast Water District's assertion of modifying a water right as an environmental mitigation to this, or as an option, an environmentally an environmental option to the pipeline. And I'd like to see both of those explored. And I don't feel I have enough to go on to make a vote today. So I would offer a substitute motion that we delay this action until those can be explored.
I'll second your motion. Comments on the amended motion or substitute?
To the chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Riley. You
Sorry, I was muted earlier, so I couldn't get your attention. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, go ahead, Director Riley.
I like the motion. I think there are too many questions that are still being addressed that should be addressed. I'm concerned particularly that even Chris Cook from Cal-Am indicated that there was very little likelihood that they would be able to get this pipeline constructed in a time frame that would allow advantages to this year's ASR season coming up this winter. And so I'm losing interest in the fact that this is a quick solution to anything that could happen in the short run. And I think a delay of any kind that would allow us to get more information and more analytical awareness of things is in the public interest. So I support the motion.
Okay, you support the amended motion. All right, Director Adams, do you have any comments?
I think the comments that I was going to make have been covered by the previous speakers. I feel like we should just continue it. I feel like we need to have more consultation with the Marina Coast Water District to address the concerns about the impact to their pipeline and to verify whether the existing system has the sufficient capacity and ability to transmit the water to Forest Lake. So those are some of the things I think we should look at if we can postpone this from today.
Okay, thank you. Director Potter, you want to make some comments since you got to leave right now?
Thank you, Elvin. I'd be curious to see if the CEQA consultant has any comments regarding the concerns that Director Evans had.
Okay, thank you. We'll get to that in a minute. Director Hoffman, do you have any comments?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Again, I just go back to and I would hope the board members would go back to what our council stated. And that is what we're looking at is making a decision regarding CEQA compliance, not approving the project as such. And so I think that those are being convoluted. And I think that it's important for the board members to keep the two separate. We're not approving the veracity of the project itself. We're looking at whether the CEQA amendment or addendum number 6 satisfies the requirements of CEQA. That's all we're looking at. And so to confuse it with approving and other ancillary stuff is outside the scope of what our decision making is at this point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Hoffman, this is Director Evans. I do want to respond to that. The reason I made the substitute motion is because I have concerns with the environmental CEQA document. I have concerns about them not looking at all of the environmental options available, including, as Dr. Moore stated, a modification of a water right that is a less impactful environmental option, less environmentally impactful option, I guess, off the cuff. I'm not a CEQA professional, so I would leave that up to them, but I do not recall seeing that in this document. And I am also concerned that we are doing this as an addendum because according to the California code, an addendum is a minor technical add. Adding a pipeline to me is not a minor technical change. So I offered a substitute motion to address my two concerns with the environmental document, not with the project.
Okay, thank you. General Manager, do we have the environmental consultant on this? Do we want?
We do. Arlene, Tyler Potter has his hand raised, but just for clarification, we do have a motion and a second, and we have an amended motion that was not accepted by the original motion maker. Is that correct?
No, the amendment was second.
No, it's not an amendment. It is a substitute motion.
Substitute motion.
Motion, well, whatever y'all want to call it.
Just trying
Well,
to keep.
what's the difference, Chair?
Yeah.
Okay, let's get the environmental consultant on there.
Tyler, you're unmuted. Please present your comment.
Great. Thank you very much, Arlene. Good afternoon, Chair, fellow directors. For the record, my name is Tyler Potter. I'm a senior project manager with Denise Duffy and Associates, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here today in front of you, albeit virtually. Just as some background, the Water Management District retained DD&A to prepare the CEQA addendum for the proposed modification. Denise Duffy and Associates has also prepared several other prior addenda for the ASR project over the course of the last several years. And I think as just kind of a background and to kind of preface my remarks, I think it's important to recognize that the approach and methodology that was used to evaluate the proposed modification was consistent with the same approach and methodology that was used for the prior modifications. That includes the recent water treatment facility modification that was before this board around this time last year, as well as the backflush basin expansion modification, and also some modifications to the Monterey Pipeline, as well as some other ones. So I think, first off, just kind of want to disclose that the methodology and approach has been consistent as far as how we've evaluated impacts for all the modifications. That approach consisted of what I would describe as a multi-step process of disclosing and summarizing the impacts that were identified under the prior addenda, evaluating the impacts associated with this modification, and then making a determination about whether the proposed modification itself would result in any other new impacts or more severe impacts, that is, would the project in combination with the prior modifications constitute any new impacts. Director Evans, to go specifically to your question regarding the appropriateness of an addendum, the key metric when determining whether to evaluate a project under an addendum is really looking at whether that modification would result or translate into a substantial new impact or substantial new effects that weren't otherwise previously identified in the original evaluation. So in this instance, I think one of the important things to keep in mind from an environmental perspective is that there's really two critical factors that we consider, amongst other, but of the two that are very important is one is the location of the project. That really informs the analysis itself. So location dictates, the extent of and type of resources that could be affected. And then secondly, also the type of the proposed project also informs that analysis. So in this case, the project location, what we're talking about is, almost exclusively existing developed or disturbed areas. The bypass pipeline itself is proposed within the existing paved right-of-way of General Jim Moore Boulevard. And then separately, the dechlorination modifications are located at the Peralta well site and also the Santa Margarita well site, which are both, existing ASR facilities and are generally considered disturbed. So I think, in light of that factor as the background for a project location. Also, secondly, the type of project also informs the analysis. And so in this case, as I mentioned, we're talking about a pipeline modification, a dechlorination facility, and those type of activities with these type of projects are generally limited to construction impacts. And construction impacts are temporary in nature and really limited in duration. And so although, we certainly recognize in the addendum itself that there would be some impacts from an operational standpoint in terms of the dechlorination facilities themselves, the impact conclusions really highlight that construction is pretty much the primary impact with this project, and I think we appropriately disclose those impacts in the addendum consistent with the same approach and methodology that was used by the Water Management District for earlier modifications to the ASR project. And so with that, I would obviously be more than happy and willing to address any other comments, but I hope that clarification provides some additional insight. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, you are on mute.
Just unmuted him.
Y'all keep me off of mute. Mr. Laredo. Okay, we had a motion.
Yes, you do.
First motion. Then we have a substitute motion. That's what y'all say. Which one we do first?
You take the second motion first, sir? And that's the motion to delay for formal answers to the questions that had been posed on the CEQA process.
Okay, I want to speak on that one. I'm going to support that second motion for the due fact of we are close to the Coastal Commission. We are working something out that I don't know which way it goes. I think the Melody Crystal answered my question for me in that. Why I'm going to approve something now that could hurt me later around the corner. So I want to make sure that this thing is not on the desal project. And I'm going to support Marina Coastal and hope that we can work things out. I also want to look at those permits that we got. Is there another way that we can get this done without tying in these pipelines? Another thing I'm concerned about, ASR is coming from the south right now. Somebody's sort of like telling me ASR is going to be coming from the north because this pipeline is going to the north. The bypass is going towards the north. So I've got concerns. So I hope we look at all the environmental impacts on this. And I would like to put a time for it to get it back. I don't think it'd be ready for September. I think I like to see it in October again and hope we will know where everything is at. And hope y'all will have enough time to go to the state about the permits, to do all of it, to talk to Marina Coastal. Because if it come back again, I think it's going to be time to make a decision. So I would support the motion. Roll call vote, Arlene, on that second motion.
Excuse me, Chair. Excuse me, Chair Edwards. You don't have the floor for everybody to speak, and so the opportunity for other board members to speak should be provided.
Wait a minute. You had your say. You had your say.
We did not have our say after the presentation.
Oh, come on, man. Mr. Lorette, where are we at?
Mr. Chairman, my understanding is that there were comments by all directors on the motion. There was a question that went out specifically to the CEQA consultant. CEQA consultant added information, and it's back to you.
Thank you. Now I'm calling for the roll call vote.
Director. No.
Director.
No.
Director Riley.
Yes.
Director Adams.
You're on mute.
Director Adams, I'm going to mute you. Director Adams, how do you? Pardon me?
Yes.
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 Aye.
Director Lynn? Director Hoffman, how do you vote?
No, Arlene.
Thank you. And Director Edwards?
Yes.
1, 2, 4. Vote is 4-3 in favor of the motion.
Okay, motion carried 4-3. Mr. Laredo, do we have to vote on that first motion now?
No, you do not, because this in essence was a motion to continue for specific answers. So the first motion does not need to be voted upon.
Thank
So
you.
Chair Edwards, this is Director Byrne. I'm leaving the meeting now. I'm past time.
Yeah,
Thank you for your day.
I know you're fed up. All right,
Chair, question through the chair.
go ahead.
The question about this permit about 21-330, is it possible that the staff could bring back information to a future meeting, maybe even before this is considered, just for information purposes, or so we can discuss or see what the options are? It's not exactly on this motion and it's not exactly on this issue, but it's an additional topic. It's a question to the GM.
Well, I think you could bring it up at your water supply meeting.
Thank you.
And just for clarification, that water right is the Table 13 water right that we discussed at water supply planning 2 meetings ago.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm losing directors. Is there any other business we got, General Manager?
We have 2 items. One, we can defer. The discussion item was based on the confidential memorandum between attorney-client related to any authority the district would have to move along on the non-certified final SEIR for Pure Water Monterey expansion, but it is not an action item. What we had hoped to hear here from through our general counsel is whether you would generally support him carrying it further to develop a strategy for the board. And I think because the full board meeting is 18 days away, we might be able to defer it to that.
Mr. Chairman, I am in full agreement that that matter can be put over to the your next regular board meeting.
Okay, sound good to me.
Now, the adjourn to closed session. This is about the potential litigation with Monterey One Water and unpaid invoices. We have begun the dispute resolution process that is in the agreement, the cost sharing agreement, to report to the board and get direction for next steps, because the dispute resolution process will require a next step. General counsel, do you think we can delay this as well? Or?
I am certain that we can delay this to the next board meeting. It cannot go past that, but I believe as long as we have this closed session item at the next board meeting, that will be timely.
Okay, how many directors have we lost? Do the directors want to go on?
Just 2. Just 2.
You're
Chair
back to
Edwards.
3.
Chair Edwards, this is Director Evans. Since we are losing our directors, and these are important topics that we should have all directors present for, I make the motion that we continue both number 3 and the closed session to the next board meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay. And a point of question to the board members who are left and to Arlene. The way we're structured right now, what we've done is had closed session at the end of a meeting.
Yes.
Because we can dump all the other attendees and just keep the team together. Is that still the best approach, or can we have a closed session prior to the regular meeting?
I'd say prior to.
I mean, that would be my preference.
I think it could be done if you have it done as a separate meeting.
Okay, so that may be the direction. Arlene, just kind of keep that in your notes as a closed session separate from the full session.
Yeah, and I would support Director Evans' suggestion of a separate, not involve the public and having to wait for it.
Okay, let's do a roll call vote on the motion.
Excuse me, did Director Evans' motion?
Supervisor Adams.
Thank you. Okay, I see Director Burns is absent. Director Hoffman, how do you vote?
Is this to delay items 3 and 4, Arlene?
Yes.
Yes, to defer these to the next meeting.
Yes.
Thank you. Director Riley?
Aye.
Director Adams?
Aye.
Director Evans?
Aye.
And Director Edwards?
Yes.
Motion approved, 5 to 2 persons absent.
Okay. No other comments? Meeting adjourned. Have a safe weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well done, Arlene.
Well done, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.